All right, welcome back. Section 2 of Module 1 of the Leadership Program. This is basically your brain apprenticeship, this section. So it tells you everything about the brain that is relevant for you to know as a leader. As you remember, the brain is a very busy piece of equipment up there. It takes up a lot of energy, so it tries and saves it where it possibly can. So it has a few little tricks that it uses to try and conserve energy and make sense of the world. So it likes to sort and search for information. So how it does that is through something called the Dippy criteria, which you may remember. So things that are dippy to us are things that'll stay in our conscious brain. Everything else goes to our subconscious. So I'm curious if you can remember what dippy means, actually, or dippy stands for. So our brain will pay attention to what is dangerous, important, pleasurable, or interesting. The rest, the brain doesn't have any space for it. Back into your subconscious. So if you're wanting to get your people's attention, you need to be hitting that Dippy criteria. But as a leader, what part of that Dippy criteria are you wanting to hit? If you are hitting danger with your people, then that may be something that you need to rethink. We probably want to be hitting perhaps the other things like important, sometimes pleasurable, and sometimes interesting as well. But if you want to get people's attention, you need to appeal to their Dippy criteria. Other things about the brain, in the section we learned how you can't multitask. The more you multitask, probably the more you're going to fry your brain, really, in my opinion. Your brain can't really do it. It can toggle, so it can flip between different tasks, but it cannot do two tasks simultaneously. It does not have that ability. So monotasking is where it's at. You want to try and focus on one thing at a time, and you want to also encourage your people to focus on one thing at a time. You are probably going to decrease the chances of burnout if you can reduce multitasking in your environments or chunk down work into kind of manageable segments where you're focusing on one thing at a time. Okay, other things that we talked about in this section were inattentional blindness. Amazing. So we refer to these as gorillas, how sometimes we see things in our environment every single day and then all of a sudden we become blind to it. It's like when you're driving your car to work, you probably don't notice half the things that you drive past because you drive past them every day. So it's remembering that our brain can go on autopilot and it can become blind to the things that are around us that are very familiar. And that's when we can make errors or mistakes or just not see stuff in our environment. The other thing we looked at was habituation. So again, our brain forms habits to make sense of the world and to just make it a whole lot easier for ourselves. So we like to form lots and lots of habits. And some habits are great, some habits are not so good. So thinking about your leadership habits, what are some leadership habits that you have that are really good, that serve you well? Like, for example, you're really good at doing one-on-ones with your team. Or what are some habits that perhaps are not helping you out in terms of leadership? Maybe it's that you look at your phone all the time when someone's talking to you, or you have a habit of cancelling meetings on people. So things like that, just looking at what are my habits, are they conducive to being a good leader? And the last thing that we looked at in this section, which was quite a big section, come to think of it now, was the ALF process. So this is how our brain quickly kind of makes sense of the world. So when we see something, we attend to it, and then we link it to something, and then we frame it up. So we call that the ALF process, attend, link, frame. So for example, when you first, you walk into a room and you see someone for the first time, you'll attend to them. You'll then link them back to maybe someone that reminds you of a person at school or what have you, and then you will remember that person at school, whatever feeling you had about them or thoughts, and then you will frame that person up that you've just met, similar to the person that you met previously. So attend, link, frame, ALF. This is very handy to know. For one reason is that A, being conscious that you do it, because this is where a lot of our biases come in, and B, you need to catch yourself at the frame. You need to catch that frame. And that's what we're going to talk about in the next section, is framing. All right, I'll see you in a second.